Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
It's Season 3, Episode 41. Tomorrow, Austin, the Atlanta Falcons converge on the confluence of the Three Rivers in Pittsburgh, the friendly confines of Heinz Field as of late. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Atlanta Falcons in very similar positions, fighting for their lives early in the season. Both teams struggling, the Steelers at 1-2-1, the Falcons at 1-3. It's shaping up to be a good one. What are your initial thoughts on this game before we get into it?
Well, I'm not looking forward to it. I don't think that there's going to be any defense played in this game. It's literally just going to be touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown on offense. And I don't think we're going to see any defense played in this game.
Is there any chance in your mind that the defense or that the offenses are going to be a little more conservative just because they want to chew up more clock to keep their defenses off the field?
I think they're just going to. I think they're going to keep just plowing it into the end zone because you can't slow it down. What if that accidentally keeps you from scoring? I'm going to say that it just keeps going. I don't see that happening. I don't know what the over-under for the total score is going to be, but I'm picking over. What even if they tell me that the over is like 70, I'm picking over. This game is going straight to the moon in points.
Completely agree with you. Before we get into the game, let's talk about some quick NFL news. Some players are returning from suspension, including the Saints running back Mark Ingram, Ravens cornerback Jimmy Smith, Bengals linebacker Vontaze Burfict, defensive lineman for the Cowboys David Irving, Rashard Robinson of the New York Jets, cornerback, some of the others including wide receiver Julian Edelman and running back Robert Turbin. They both return for the Thursday night football game between the Patriots and Colts. And Travis Frederick of the Dallas Cowboys was placed on injured reserve. Austin, do you have a chance to tell us a little bit about the injury report, go through that for both teams?
Oh, yeah. For the Steelers, it's going to be Vince Williams, Darius Hayward-Bay, and Morgan Burnett are all doubtful. They didn't get an out, but likely they are all not playing. As for the Falcons, Justin Bethel has been ruled out. Brady Jarrett has been ruled out, and those are the only two that were big. I believe. I believe everyone else, like Vic Beasley, Julio Jones, who are limited in practice, I don't think they got an injury designation. I think that they, regardless, even if they did, they're questionable and they're good to go. I saw that reports that Julio Jones would be fine and Vic Beasley was going to be fine coming into this. So yeah, that's the injury report for both teams.
All right, jumping into the series history between these two teams, the Steelers hold a 13-2-1 advantage, having won most recently in Atlanta during the 2014 season. William Gabe memorably had a pick six in that game. The Steelers have won the last two games against the Falcons, dating back to the 2006 season, which was the Falcons' last win in that rivalry. They've never met in the postseason, and a couple fun facts. One, the Falcons are 0-6-1 lifetime in Pittsburgh, so they've never won in Pittsburgh. And the last tie the Steelers were involved in prior to the Week 1 tie against the Browns was against the Falcons in 2002. It was the only time a Bill Cowher coached Steelers team didn't win a football game after leading by 14 points in the fourth quarter. And at the time, Tommy Maddox set a team record for passing yards in that game with 477 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. And that was actually my earliest football memory. That was the first football game I ever remember watching, just because of how strange it was that there was a tie. And that was actually the only tie in the NFL from that span up until 2008. So it was the only tie in the NFL for quite a while. But if there's going to be a tie just like that 34-34 game, it involved a lot of offense. And there's certainly going to be a lot more in this game. As there's a lot of reason to believe that. On the Steelers' end, they might be catching a bit of a break. The Falcons had a relatively good defense going into this season, but they've just been slammed with the injury bug, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. They've lost Keanu Neal, Deion Jones, Ricardo Allen. Now they lost Brady Jarrett, not for the year, but just for this game. And then you have to also add cornerback Justin Bethel, who is out for this game. And then who's really left after that? Like, the Falcons had a decent defense coming into this year, like you said. And now it's just Desmond Trufant, Vic Beasley, and Tack McKinley. But after that, it just gets really rough. That being said, this game is in the hands of the offense. It's a question of whether the Steelers' offense can keep up with the Falcons' offense. And, I mean, come on. If the Steelers don't, it would be embarrassing. Like, I just went over with you how many key guys the Falcons are missing. I guarantee a casual fan can't even name most of their starting defense at this point. It's really rough. If the Steelers put less than 28 on them, I'm going to be disappointed, because it's not just the quality of the players that the Falcons are left with. Like the Steelers' defense, the Falcons' defense has been suffering from communication issues and coverage breakdowns, from them having to switch out people and bring in new faces that they weren't expecting. And so the Steelers need to eat at home on offense and get back on track. I'm expecting great things out of Roethlisberger. I'm also expecting a false start. Not a false start, a fast start. Because honestly, this game may come down to the last team to get the ball, and the Steelers can't start slow like they have the first 4 weeks of the season. It would be a death sentence from the get-go to start that way. With Roethlisberger likely going off in my head, I expect the receivers and tight ends to absolutely put up great stats here. This is going to be the game that Brown and Ben get on track. I want to book that now. This is going to be the game where Brown hits it big. And now, I really like him going into this game. Like, the Falcons can't really afford to double cover him when they have Juju and Vance to worry about as well. Speaking of Vance, the Falcons are one of the worst teams in the league against covering tight ends. And we've seen what Vance can do once he gets the ball in his hand. He's a complete mismatch across the entire field with his speed and athleticism. There's literally no one on their team that can keep him in check. And that's a big reason why I think the Steelers won't be able to successfully double cover Antonio Brown, because they're just going to end up with Vance beating them up instead. I'm not forgetting about Juju, though. Juju will likely play mostly against Robert Alford and Isaiah Oliver, and you might remember me talking about Oliver. He ruined last week's game against the Bengals. He is the reason why the Falcons lost to the Bengals last week. And, yeah, I don't have exactly a lot of confidence in him. I think it's a total mismatch for Juju, because he's better than either of those guys. So I'm really expecting big things from him as well. Where I am expecting a bit of struggle on offense is with the linemen. They've proven to be not very good run blockers so far, and now they're up against some solid pass rushers in Vic Beasley and Tack McKinley. So I think they're going to have another rough game. I would like to point out that Tack McKinley, my favorite rookie pre-draft last year, got 3 sacks last week, so he's definitely someone to watch out for. That could have been his breakout game, because I think that was like his first huge game ever. But I also don't expect the running game to be fixed in this one unless they start using Rosie Nix more. Nix is a proven blocker on outside runs, and we're just not seeing it. We're not seeing Nix being put in. It would help Connor immensely when the line isn't blocking for Nix to be out there in front. Hopefully we get to see more of that in that game. If I remember correctly, last game he got 1 snap of offense. That's ridiculous. Nix is too good of a player to only be used on 1 snap of offense. Despite me not thinking the running game will be good, I think Connor could go off through the air with how much I imagine Ben throwing. But his pass blocking is going to be big in this one as well. He needs to have a huge game in that department. The Steelers are going to end up throwing all game again. So that's really my preview for the offense going into this game. What do you think about the offense going into this game? Do you think they're going to go off?
I do, and I guess the way I see it is that this group is too talented to struggle like they did last week. The Steelers are getting the Falcons, as we talked about, at just the right time. As every week passes, it seems more and more like the football gods hate the Falcons' defense. You already talked about it. They have 3 defensive starters on injured reserve, and a 4th in Brady Jarrett, who's injured and won't play in this game. That's not to say the Falcons still don't have some talented players, but like the Steelers, the defense is really the weak spot of this team. Their really only strength on defense right now, which is a weakened strength right now, is the front 4. It's going to be up to Vic Beasley and Tack McKinley to get after Ben Roethlisberger. Otherwise, if they can't, I don't see how the Falcons are going to stand much of a chance. It's true Desmond Trufant's a solid cornerback, but both of the Falcons' starting safeties are on injured reserve. The Steelers' receivers, who have had separation all year, should be running free all day long. I think with the question marks coming down on Antonio Brown and the matchup with Julio Jones, Antonio Brown will show once again that he is the best receiver in the NFL and he'll get back on track. And a big part of that is going to be how Ben Roethlisberger plays. And there's really not much reason, or really not much of a track for us to believe that he's going to get back on track. But I feel like we know we've seen streaky play from him, but this is the kind of game where he turns it around. And if there's a game for it to happen, it would be this one. Otherwise, if he doesn't start connecting with Antonio Brown here, it's a huge problem. I would like to see the Steelers mix in the ground game as well. I was not happy with the really unbalanced attack the Steelers had on offense. I think it hurt them at the end of the day in some respects. But the fact of the matter is the Steelers have been struggling to run the ball, and the Falcons are going to be putting up a lot of points, and you don't want to sabotage your offense by running the ball when it hasn't been established as much and the passing game has been working so well. So I think the clear option here for the Steelers offense is to keep throwing the ball. You mentioned Brown's he'll probably be bracketed, but they can't pay as much attention to him without guys like Juju Smith-Schuster or Vance McDonald running free. Or this could even be the game we see James Washington break out. This is really up to Ben Roethlisberger to get back playing the way that we know he can play. And if he does and he starts getting this deep ball back, it's going to be the Steelers offense we thought we were going to see at the beginning of the year. The offense we've thought we were going to see for years now, as far as a team reaching 30 points. I don't really see a reason the Steelers shouldn't if Roethlisberger's playing well. Again, if they don't, then there's some serious questions to be asking about this offense. But a lot of it, a huge part of it is starting off fast, and we'll get more into that later, but starting fast is so big for this team, and we talked about how they've been starting slow so much. You have to think that starting fast in this game at Heinz Field is going to be a huge point of emphasis for the Steelers on Sunday, so I have to think that they're going to bounce back in a big way against an injury-riddled and struggling defensive unit for the Falcons. On the other side, it's looking to be a tough matchup. Like the Falcons' defense against the Steelers' offense, the defense is going to have its hands full. Are there any matchups that do favor the Steelers? Is there anything that the Steelers might be able to hang their hat on?
Well, before I start with that, I would just like to welcome everybody to the pessimist take on the Steelers defense. If you are looking for any bright spot for me to say, oh boy, this is going to be great, you're not really going to get it. You're not going to get more than, yeah, this might be okay. This might work out okay. But honestly, you might as well just take the defense off the field and just let both teams keep scoring until we see who wins. That's how I expect the game to go. This isn't the Ravens anymore. This isn't Flacco, Michael Crabtree, and Alex Collins. This is Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Devontae Freeman. Then you throw in star rookie Calvin Ridley, solid receiver Mohamed Sanu, and a decent tight end in Austin Hooper, and then a decent offensive line. And you have the Falcons' monster of an offense. Similar to how the Steelers' offense has mismatches across the field, the Falcons' offense also has mismatches everywhere. Like with how Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt have performed, it's really hard to think of a spot where the Steelers have an advantage here. The only one I could think of is that maybe since starting guard Andy Levitre is out for the year for the Falcons, the John Bostic and whoever starts next to them might be able to get some sacks on inside linebacker blitzes. But that is a very specific scenario. And that's something that needs to be talked about as well, though. Who is actually going to be starting next to John Bostic with Vince Williams out? The Steelers have been very cryptic about it, saying that LJ Fort will probably get his shot this Sunday. They've now changed that and said, yeah, he's probably going to be the main guy with Tyler Matakevich coming in on certain things and Matthew Thomas being sprinkled in. But Matthew Thomas took some first-team reps last week, and Tyler Matakevich was the starter coming into this season. So who knows if they're even telling the truth, and maybe they're just trying to throw the Falcons off in the only way they know. The answer is going to be that there probably will be changing depending on the situation. I can't wait for the Steelers to get another 12 men on the field penalty for the fourth time in 5 weeks because of this. I expect it to happen at this point. It's just unavoidable in my mind, and that's going to piss me off. I say it's unavoidable like it should happen. It shouldn't happen. It's just unavoidable because this team is just inept in that department. Let's talk about the other linebackers, though. T.J. Watt and Dupree. Neither have favorable matchups going against Jake Matthews and Ryan Schrader on the outside, but this is going to be weird to say, but I actually feel better about Dupree in terms of pass rush, mostly because Dupree relies on his speed to make anything happen. I think it's a better chance throwing his guy off like he did last week to get a sack with his speed compared to T.J. Watt having just a straight-up pass rush. My confidence for Watt is just super low at this point. He really sank down after that Cleveland game. Same with Hayward for that matter. Like, his pass rushing just isn't there, so why should I believe in him? These guys need to show me that they can pass rush. They are supposed to be elite pass rushers. Maybe not Watt. Watt wasn't really supposed to be, but Cameron Hayward definitely is. And he's just looking like some guy out there. I think you guys can imagine after my whole huge rant onto it yesterday that my expectations for him is nothing. I'm going to leave it at that because I don't need to go further. Then up the middle with Hargrave, it's been quiet since the beginning of the season from up the middle. I mean, sure, you got a coverage sack last week, but I don't expect anything going forward from there. Now let's finish up with the secondary because somehow it gets worse. Can anyone cover Julio Jones? That is a question. But I think we need to go further than that on the Steelers defense. Can any two people cover Julio Jones? We saw Josh Brown beat Cameron Sutton and Joe Hayden at the same time last week. So you're going to tell me that two guys could cover Julio Jones? Probably not. It's just, I don't know. I don't have confidence. I have zero confidence in this unit. I would want Hayden to shadow him for the most part, but like I don't expect anything good to come out of it because it's still an athletic mismatch. I guess that would mean I would want Mike Hilton on Calvin Ridley, which would be an even more important job since Ridley has 6 touchdowns and Jones has 0. But I actually do feel okay if that's the matchup we get. I like Mike Hilton against Calvin Ridley, and I feel like it's even. That's, I think, the best thing I could say about the defense if that happens. Then that will leave Burns and Sensabaugh and Sanu, and I think that's really the best-case scenario. And I'm not going to look forward to seeing Burns lined up across from Julio. I know it's going to happen. I know it's inevitable. But, like, my eyeballs don't want to be subjected to such a hideous sight. Like, I feel like I don't deserve that, and it hurts my feelings. And, therefore, the Falcons shouldn't be allowed to do it. So, I forbid Julio Jones to line up across from Artie Burns. And if the Falcons do it, I'm going to make the NFL fine them. Moving on, I don't even want to see Hilton on Jones that much because poor little Hilton may get mossed with the size difference and how good Jones is. I mean, Hilton's 5'9", and Jones is 6'4", so it's not the biggest difference. It's just Jones is just such an athletic player, and I feel like it would hurt my feelings to see Hilton just get outworked by him because I love Hilton, but I really wish Burnett was back for this one. So there could be a veteran presence to help contain Julio. But unfortunately, we're stuck with Edmonds here. But hey, at least we won't see Nat Burr out there. I actually feel okay on the other side with Davis in this game. Davis isn't good, but he did good. He did not good. He did okay last week. I feel like he continued that this week. So maybe it won't be so bad on his side. But yeah, so I think the only positive things I said for the defense going into this game is that Mike Hilton might have an okay matchup against Calvin Ridley, and that Sean Davis might be okay. Everything else, I don't see any hope. I think everything else is in trouble. And it's funny because I've been kind of hard on Sean Davis, and this is like a week where I shouldn't believe in him. I just have some like blind hope for him that he's going to just perform average, decent enough against a good team. So that's what I have to say about the defense. I can't wait to hear what you got to say.
Well, I'll start off similar to you. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is the week you're hoping to see changes in the narratives for the Steelers defense, I'm here to say you are sadly mistaken. I believe the Falcons might actually have the best offense the Steelers will see all year. Across the board, they don't have a weakness. They have a really good offensive line, even without Andy Levitre. two good running backs who produce consistently, a former MVP at quarterback, one of the best receivers in the NFL, and the other two are really good. One of them in Calvin Ridley looks like a budding star, and I didn't even mention Austin Hooper, who I kind of see as a Jesse James 2.0. There just aren't enough guys on almost any defense to stop all these options. Even if the Steelers' defense was elite, I wouldn't feel great about this game. Other than the opening night loss to the Eagles, a month ago, the Falcons have hung 30-plus points in each of the last 3 games against different opponents. So if you're the Steelers, what can you do? The one positive, I will say that it's not like all the issues we've been seeing with this defense can be fixed in 1 week. At the very least, the miscommunication issues seem to have improved this past week against the Ravens. So the next step in continuing to improve would be more consistent plays from the quote-unquote stars on this defense, guys that we know can play better. Joe Hayden has played well, and so has John Bostic, but guys like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, like you mentioned, can still play better. Even if they're just a little more disruptive and make a few plays in this game, it could be enough. I don't know what to expect, honestly. If you're Keith Butler, I'm hesitant to leave the DBs in single coverage by blitzing all game, but you can't sit back there all game either. Matt Ryan's a smart quarterback, and I would just say mix it up. Blitz, play man defense, zone defense, just don't do the same thing all game long. If the offense beats you, you can at least hold your head a little higher because you threw everything at them. But at the end of the day, it's going to take more than improved efforts from Watt and Hayward for the defense to have a legitimate chance. You really have to hope you can get more from guys like Tuitt, Dupree, Burns, and Davis. As long as they just don't get beat for the big play too often, it should help. I think I am setting the bar kind of low here, but this unit doesn't inspire much confidence in me, and they're facing a fantastic offense. The good news is that on the other side, the Steelers have a nice mismatch themselves on offense, so it might be kind of a situation where you just need to make a few plays to win this one. It's going to be tough for sure, but like you said, I'm also very interested to see how the inside linebacker position works opposite John Bostic. And furthermore, I was thinking about this. Terrell Edmunds is a strong safety. He was drafted to be a strong safety. When he got beat over the top last week, that's kind of a free safety's position. And my initial thought was, I get he has to do that sometimes, but it's just like, that doesn't suit his specific skills. Like, he was not drafted to be a deep thirds kind of guy. And it's just, it comes back to like the inside linebackers facing tight ends up the seam. They're just made to suffer and made to struggle in bad situations. I don't know, what do you think about that? Like when you hear it explained to you, as I just said?
I don't know. I feel like you're right, because Terrell Edmunds is a strong safety position. He's been trained for that, and that's what the Steelers literally said. They want to train him in this one position, and they don't want to expose him to the other side because they want him to develop as a strong safety, and that's it. They don't want to confuse him. They want to just try and make him into a better strong safety, and that's it. So it almost is like Davis should have been there, since he is a free safety, and that was a free safety's job. So, I think I agree with you.
I know it's still one season, but seeing stuff like that just makes me worry that I don't know what his upside can be exactly, but it makes me worry that his production is going to be stunted by doing stuff like this. You on the same page as me?
Yeah, I'm on the same page.
All right. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to be tough. I don't even know where you could expect stuff. I guess you just kind of hope. You might have to hope and pray that the Falcons offense has a bad day too, but make no mistake, the Falcons are going to move the football. It's going to be up to the defense to come up with big plays in the red zone, come up with enough turnovers or sacks on third down, get off the field. That's all there is to it, really. It's a war of attrition, really, when it comes down to it. The special teams battle, who has the edge?
Well, the Falcons are averaging 45.1 yards per punt, which is 20th in the league, while the Steelers are averaging 42.5 yards per punt, which is 28th in the league. But what's actually interesting is that the Atlanta's punt coverage team is actually terrible when you look at how much their average drops them off. Atlanta's net average is 38.5. Ranking 26, right below Pittsburgh at 25 with a 39.5-yard net average. Pittsburgh also has Atlanta beat on punt return average, with Pittsburgh ranking 11th with 10.1 yards per return, and Atlanta ranking 26th with 5.2 yards per return. That's all I really got to say about special teams. Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't really. Let's just get right into the keys for this game. On offense, I'll go through both of mine, Austin. On offense, I think it's going to be starting fast. The Steelers have to be able to score points early and often. We've been talking about it for weeks now. They've got to be able to get something going early on in the game. And then on defense, I already kind of alluded to it. Come up with turnovers. The Falcons, one of the best offenses in the league. They're going to move the ball. You got to be able to get some big plays in the red zone and big plays on third down. What about you?
I'm going to have to say start fast as well. This is the last game you'd want to go down early. If there aren't 3 points on the board on the Steelers' first offensive drive, I'm going to be livid. And for defense, it's just to make the tackles. I don't believe in this team in coverage at all going into this game, so it's going to be tackling after the catch is made. That's going to be the difference maker in this game. So moving along for X factors, who are your X factors for offense and defense? Is there even a defensive X factor? Is there going to be someone making a difference on defense?
Well, I don't know if there's really going to be someone, but as far as players who I'm hoping will make a difference, it's going to be T.J. Watt. And you mentioned it. If you're looking on the inside of your fridge at that milk carton for the missing persons, T.J. Watt's on there. He's been on there for 3 weeks. It's time to get back to doing what we've seen him do. He's better than what we've seen, and his performance is going to be a big factor in this one. He's a good coverage linebacker. He can rush the passer at times. He's better at setting the edge in the running game. He's going to be very important. He's got a big game coming up, and I'm not saying a 2-sack, 1-interception game is going to be enough to win, but it's really going to go a long way for this defense. And on offense, for me, it's James Washington. Still haven't seen a ton from him. I just feel like once Roethlisberger gets the deep ball going, he's going to be a force, and I really can't wait for it to happen. I really hope it's this week because the Steelers season might be running out of oomph if they lose this week. What about you?
For defense, since he's one of the two I had at least a tiny bit of belief in going into this one, and he's returning from injury, I'm picking Mike Hilton as being the difference maker on defense in this one. If I could even say there will be a difference maker. On offense, it's going to be Vance McDonald for me. I feel like Vance is going to be the game changer for the Steelers, whether he puts up a big stat line or not. I don't think it matters even if he only gets one catch for 10 yards. I think his performance will really control how open AB will be, and that's why I think he's going to be the X factor in this game.
All right, around the NFL, starting with the 1 o'clock games, let's get into our pick'em. Titans at Bills. Titans 5.5-point favorites on the road. I'm going to take Tennessee to win. They're sneaky good. Mike Vrabel's got that team pointed in the right direction. Even with the question marks at quarterback, they've got a solid defense, and I like where they're going. I think they win this one pretty handily in Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the Titans covering here. If they could get their run game together, I don't understand why their run game isn't as good as it should be. They have Derrick Henry and Deion Lewis, and I feel like their run game hasn't been one of the top in the league. Like, it basically should be with a good 1-2 punch, but I still have the Titans covering. But if they could get their run game together, they could be actually a contender.
The now 3-1 Miami Dolphins at the 3-1 Bengals. Bengals leading the AFC North, 6-point favorite at home. I wasn't sure where to go on this one, but I think the Bengals are just a really good team right now. I think they're feeling really good, and next week's game against Pittsburgh will be huge for them. But for now, I'm not very high on the Dolphins right now, and I think the Bengals will win this one pretty handily.
It's going to be rough without Cameron Wake for the Dolphins. That would have been like one of the better guys to have for this one, since the Bengals' probable weakness is their offensive line. But even without Cameron Wake and possibly without Devontae Parker, I actually haven't seen the news on whether he's playing this week or not. But I'm going to pick the Dolphins +6 in this one. I think that they can keep it close. They were doing better against not as good teams, so I think that they could. I mean, the Bengals are a pretty solid team right now, like you said, but I think that the Dolphins keep it close, within a touchdown. Dolphins +6.
All right, the Ravens at Cleveland. Baltimore getting 3 points in Cleveland against the rookie Baker Mayfield. I think they're going to confuse the rookie, so lay the points. Lay the 3 for Baltimore for me.
I'm going to agree. Ravens cover here. Hayden Hurst is making his rookie debut, and he's already the starter. They named him the starter for going into this game, so I think he's going to put up some big things, and I'm going to pick the Ravens to cover.
Pack going up to Detroit. This is a pick'em game. You could go either way with this one. I don't know. I originally was thinking Packers. Aaron Rodgers not pleased with the Bills' with the performance against the Bills last week, despite shutting them out. The Lions could be sneaky good, but they just haven't had any convincing games outside of the win over the Patriots. I'm actually going to take the Lions to win this one. I think they're a little more of a complete team than the Packers are.
I'm going to also pick the Lions to cover. Davante Adams is playing. That just broke 30 minutes ago. He's expected to play. But, when I first wrote this up, I was picking the Lions to cover by a lot because it was looking like the Packers were going to be without Davante Adams, Geronimo Allison, and Randall Cobb, which is their starting 3 wide receivers. And that would have been terrible. They're still going to be without Geronimo. They're still going to be without Randall. They got Davante, but I still have the Lions covering. I think that it's just going to be hard against the Lions defense to get anything going. The Lions defense, I made a mistake last week. I said they were the best rush defense. They're the worst rush defense. But what's good about that is that the Packers' run game isn't that great. Aaron Jones came back, and he actually did solid last week. But, I'm not a fan of their rotation they got going. So I think that could work in the Lions' favor. So I'm going to pick the Lions to cover.
Possible preview of the AFC Championship. The Jacksonville Jaguars going to Kansas City to take on the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs getting 3 points at home. I was going to give the Chiefs the points just because they haven't lost yet, and I was going to just roll with them until they, weren't going to win. But I'll actually take the Jaguars to win this one outright. So give me the Jags.
I'm going to pick the Chiefs to cover in this one. I know that they struggled against the Broncos defense last week, or I guess I can't really say struggled. They just didn't put up as many points as they are used to. But I don't know. I feel like without Leonard Fournette, Blake Bortles and TJ Yeldon aren't going to be able to keep up with Patrick Mahomes and Kareem Hunt. That's just how I view it. Even though Patrick Mahomes has a harder challenge going against the Jaguars defense, which is up there with the top in the league, compared to Bortles going against the Chiefs defense, which is one of the worst in the league, I just feel like Mahomes has got the edge here. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs to cover.
I'm on that TJ Yeldon hype train. Always will be. Broncos at Jets, another pick'em game. This Vegas, not sure where to go on this one. I'm going to take the Broncos to win on the road. I'm just not a believer in Sam Darnold right now.
I'm going to agree with you. Broncos win outright. We saw the Broncos defense do pretty good against Mahomes. I'm feeling very good about them keeping Darnold in check.
Giants at Panthers. Carolina getting 6 points at home after the bye week. I think the Giants will keep this one close, but I think the Panthers will win this one, so I'll take the Giants plus the 6.
I'm going to take the Panthers to cover in this one. I don't really have anything much to say about this game. There wasn't really anything interesting for me in this game. This is going to be personally one of my least favorite games of the week this week, so I'm just going to say the Panthers cover.
Oakland Raiders at the LA Chargers. Chargers actually getting 5.5 points here. The Raiders almost always either win these games or they, I've noticed the Raiders always have a huge special teams play against the Chargers. It's like every year against the Chargers they block a punt or something. I don't know if they'll win this game, but I think they keep it close. So I'll take the Raiders plus the 5.5 points.
I'm going to take the Chargers to cover. It feels like a mistake, especially after what they showed last week against the CJ-led 49ers. But I'm still going to pick the Chargers to cover because I think they're the better team. So,
Vikings at Eagles, a matchup between two NFC powerhouses that have disappointed a bit this year. Eagles getting 3 points at home. I think the champs come out and win this one. I'm just not a believer in Kirk Cousins. I never have been, and I think they're in free fall mode right now.
I'm going to actually pick the Vikings to win outright here. I think that this is going to be a game where the Vikings turn it around and they actually end up doing well. I think that they pick apart the good Philadelphia defense, and then I think they come out on top. I think Vikings win outright.
Rams at the Seahawks. This has been a game where the Rams usually would have beaten the good Seahawks teams back in the day. Now the roles are reversed. It's going to be a close one, possibly, between two division rivals, but the Rams are getting 7.5 points. At first, I thought this was going to be close, like I was just mentioning, but I do think the Rams are going to run away with this one. So I'll take the Rams plus the 7.5. Or sorry, I'll take them to cover the 7.5 points.
I'm going to agree with you. I said last week, and I hate this division. I hate when they play each other. But I'm going to still take the Rams to cover. The Rams are just a completely better team than the Seahawks. The Seahawks are decimated right now. Rams cover. The
other two NFC West teams playing each other, the Arizona Cardinals still in search of their first win in San Francisco, taking on the C.J. Beathard-led 49ers. San Francisco 3.5 points at home. Give me the Cardinals to win this one. I feel good about Josh Rosen in this one.
I'm going to actually go with the 49ers covering here. The Cardinals are terrible against the rush so far, and you saw it last week when they gave up 2 touchdowns to Mike Davis. I hate all the Seattle running backs, so I feel like that's telling, and I really like Matt Breida and Alfred Morris in this one, so I'm going to pick the 49ers to cover.
Sunday Night Football, the Battle of Texas, the Dallas Cowboys at the Houston Texans. Houston getting 3.5 at home. I was flipping back and forth, but at the end of the day, I just went with the Texans to cover. This is too big of a game for them to lose. If they lose, they're not out of it, but they're pretty close.
I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win outright here. I think that the Cowboys showed some better stuff last week and that they're improving even now that they don't have Terrence Williams anymore since he went on IR, and they now totally lost Travis Frederick for 8 weeks at the minimum. So I'm still going to pick the Cowboys to win outright. I feel like the Texans are just a bad team that are underperforming, even though they won last week against the Colts. But that was a fluke game. The Colts should have won that if it wasn't for bad play calling. So Cowboys win outright.
Monday Night Football, the Redskins coming off the bye at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Saints getting 6.5 at home. I'll take the Redskins plus the 6.5. I like it. I always like a team coming off the bye for the most part, and I think they'll keep this one close, but the Saints will win.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Redskins plus 6.5 too. The Saints offense is potent, and they just got Mark Ingram back. So, this is going to be rough for the Redskins, but the Saints defense is still bad. The Saints defense is underperforming severely for how they finished last year, and I think that'll let the Redskins stay close enough and be within 6.5 points.
All right, the Bears and Buccaneers on bye weeks right now. Let's get into our bold predictions and final score. Give me both of yours right now, starting with your bold predictions and moving right into your final score. Sure.
Ben Roethlisberger is going to throw for 5 touchdowns and over 450 yards with no fumbles. I think I've now made that prediction 3 times this year, but I feel like this was a really good game for it, so I did it again. Then Vance McDonald makes 10 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown. And my third one is also an offensive one. I think that just speaks on how much I don't believe in the defense. Antonio Brown gets back on track and goes for over 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's going to lead to my score. So I saw 2 case scenarios happening. One where the Steelers offense just manages to be unprecedentedly terrible against a bad defense, and the Steelers lose 50-16. Or the offense is going to get it together and just barely edge out the Falcons 42-39. So after being a pessimist for most of the episode, and probably you could tell from my bold predictions, I'm going to change it up and go with the Steelers 42-39. And this is going to be one of the Steelers. This is going to be when the Steelers turn around on offense. The defense is still bad, though. Steelers cover because they are 3-point favorites. What are your bold predictions, and what's your final score prediction?
My bold predictions are that the Steelers finally block a punt. They've come close the last few weeks, and I think this is the week they finally get it done, and it's a huge play for the special teams. I think T.J. Watt, my defensive X factor, finally gets back on track, has 2.5 sacks and 1 interception. And James Washington on offense averages nearly 20 yards per catch by hauling in 4 passes for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns for the offense. Look, at the end of the day, we already know this is all about offense. I'm really not sure where I'm leaning right now. I guess at the end of the day, I really was not happy with what I saw from the Steelers last week, and I feel just not as confident or good about this team. So I'm going to take the Falcons to win this one 41-37, winning outright over the Steelers, who are at 3-point favorites. What were your thoughts on the line when it originally came out? I didn't expect 3 points for the Steelers to be favored. Although then again, these are basically mirror images of each other. If you see the pointing Spider-Man meme, that's basically these two teams right now.
Honestly, I was actually surprised that the Steelers were favored. I didn't realize, to be honest with you, that how bad the Falcons' record was. I didn't realize they were 1-3. So at first I was surprised, then I got it because these teams are identical, and it's like their stats are so close, and it's just waiting for what. I think that they gave it to it because the Steelers are at home. I think if the Falcons were at home, it would be Falcons by 3 points. I think that would have literally been the difference maker. But yeah.
Well, let me ask you one more thing. Is the loser of this game, is their season over?
Yep. Oh yeah, because I can't. It's gonna be hard to imagine that the Bengals lose against the Dolphins, and it's gonna be hard for me to imagine the Ravens losing against the Browns, and that's gonna be a tough thing for the. It's gonna be tough for the Steelers to beat up from. I mean, they get to verse both those teams one more time, so I mean anything can happen. But if the Steelers lose, I'm not sold on them. I'm not. I'm going to be sold on them being an 8-7-1 team. Like I think that is it possible that they turn around for the season? Yeah, but I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to continue with what I do think right now, that they're an 8-7-1 team. As for the Falcons, they're not going to play catch up with Carolina and the Saints. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of the other team I was thinking of. They're done for. I don't think that they could get a wild card either because there's just so many good teams. Like you look at the Packers division with the Vikings, Packers, and Lions, and like by the end of the year, those might be all three of those teams might make it because of. I'm sorry. I'm excluding the Bears. The Bears lead that division. I knew I forgot something. The Bears might sneak in as a wild card or be the winner of that division. And the Packers and maybe the Vikings make it as wild cards. I don't know. Like I can't imagine the Falcons making it as they drop here. I think their season is over. What do you think?
I think it's still a little too early for that, but the loser of this game is, I'll put it this way, they're on life support. Their buffer is gone. They basically have to be damn near perfect to make the playoffs. That's kind of how I'm going to put it because it's still October. The season's not over this early in the season in my mind, but it can be pretty close to over at this point. So, all right. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, just everybody go check out tseshop.com. They have the best Steelers, Pirates, and Penguins memorabilia. I own a bunch of stuff from them. They're really good people over there, and I like their stuff. It always gets authentic. I can't even say the word. It's got all the signatures and stuff and the documents that prove that the signatures are from the athletes. I got my signed Antonio Brown jersey sitting in front of me. I have a trash Martavis Bryant picture signed behind me, and I got my David DeCastro jersey not hanging yet, but it's signed and on my floor waiting to be hanged. And I got it all from TSE Shop. So check them out. That we should be doing a giveaway with them soon. Stay tuned for that.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to us today. If you have any questions, email the show at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website listed in the description below. And as always, thank you for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with Austin and John. Have a great night.
Good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out